Hi everybody, welcome back to Right to the Top. I'm Adam. In this video series, I'm going to help you guys create an idea bank for your IELTS or TOEFL writing section preparation. An idea bank is just a collection of words and topics and questions and examples and sample essays that you're going to use to help you prepare for the essay component of the exam. Now, it's very important that you create an idea bank because this is what's going to help you prepare the most to succeed on this section of the exam. Now, we're going to do a few things. In today's video, I'm going to talk about the introduction, talk about why you need to create an idea bank, what should be in the idea bank, and we're actually going to get started. And we're going to get started with the vocabulary collection. I'm going to show you how to collect it, what to do with it once you have it, and again, why it's important to do it. So let's dive right into it and start with the why. Why do you need an idea bank? Keep in mind that the task 1 of the exam, whether for the IELTS TOEFL or the TOEFL IELTS General, is that the information is given to you. In the task 1, the information is given to you, so there's not much in terms of creative or critical thinking necessary. You're observing or you're listening and reading, and you're just taking what's given to you and putting it into your own words in a summary. So not too stressful, I would think. Anyway, I know it's stressful for some people, but the problem is the essay. And what's wrong with the essay is that it requires you to produce your own ideas in order to justify a thesis. You're going to be asked for an opinion, you're going to have to say why you have that opinion. And that includes ideas, support, examples, arguments, etc. For a lot of people, this is a little bit difficult to do because you might not have that much practice doing it. Now, the reason it's important to prepare is that the essay is worth 67% of your writing score. 2/3 of your writing score comes from the essay. So you need to be able to create a very strong essay. Even if you have a very strong summary, but a weak essay, your score will not be very good, again, because of the way they break up the scoring. Now, another problem with the writing is that a lot of people think that this is an English language exam, so they're checking your grammar and vocabulary, which they are, of course. Grammar and vocabulary is part of writing, it's part of speaking, part of the language. But what they're really checking is your ability to communicate, and to communicate an idea, and to make sure that your reader is convinced that you actually believe what you're saying or that you have a reason to say what you're saying in your essay. So that's where the task response and the cohesion and coherence score come into play. Each worth 25%, collectively 50%. So half your score is not grammar or vocabulary. Half your score is your ideas and the way you support these ideas and the way you organize these ideas, which is why you have to have all of this stuff prepared a little bit in advance whenever possible. Now, the main reasons, again, that you want to create an idea bank beyond the technical is what it will help you do in terms of managing yourself during the exam. So one thing the idea bank will do is would actually help you save time. How does it help you save time? Well, a lot of people, they get to the writing section. First of all, they're already tired. They've done the listening, they've done the reading. An hour and a half, 40 minutes have already passed. They're pretty tired. So they're a little bit stressful. Now they have to start thinking about ideas to answer the essay task question or prompt. And a lot of people spend too much time thinking and they don't have enough time to write properly and a strong essay. So this is one thing that'll help, is if you already have these ideas beforehand. Also, if you don't have enough ideas, you don't have enough to write about. So having these ideas and extended ideas will help you write more, and then you make sure you get the word count. Remember, for IELTS, you need at least 250 words. For TOEFL, recommended 300 or more. And more is obviously going to be a little bit better for the TOEFL. So make sure you have enough to write about. Now, the more idea banks you create, the less chance there is that you will come across an unfamiliar topic. Now, they can ask you about pretty much anything, but there are certain topics that keep coming up a lot. For example, education comes up a lot, government comes up a lot, technology comes up a lot. Make sure you have idea banks at least for these. But even if you get something that's a little bit more rare, by having prepared to think about different things in different ways, you will be ready for pretty much anything. So that's another advantage of the idea bank. Also, part of the idea bank is collecting questions. So once you've gone through a whole bunch of questions, you won't see any more tricky questions on the exam. You'll be able to look at a question, understand what's being asked of you, and address the needs of the question right away. Also, you will be able to provide good arguments. You will be able to elaborate on them. Elaborate means build the argument or give reasons, give support, etc. And the most important thing is you will reduce your stress. Remember, before you start writing your essay, plan your essay. Don't start writing until you know exactly what you're going to say. And this is where people get stressed because they can't think of anything, they don't know how to organize things. Again, if you had an idea bank created, this will help you do that as well. And I'm going to talk to you about that eventually, about what to do with all the materials you've collected and how to prepare for the actual writing day, right? The day you go write your exam. So that's one thing. Another thing, what should be in your idea bank? Well, you should have keywords, basically vocabulary, and you should think about common terms. These are words that will come up a lot. I'm going to explain all of these different categories as we get to them. You should also include subtopics, which are more focused topics. So again, education, very big topic. They can't really ask you anything about education. They're going to ask you something within the field of education, and it's going to be a bit more specific. So you're going to think about these specific topics. Sample questions. You're going to try to get as many questions as you can. Examples. Things that you can use to support your arguments and your ideas. And of course, you're going to collect sample essays, and you're going to write sample essays. So let's start with the vocabulary. What are you going to do with vocabulary? Step one, you're going to collect as many words as you possibly can. Then you're going to organize them into categories. And I'll explain this in a moment. Again, you're going to identify your common terms and expressions that come up a lot. You're going to look for alternatives, which is basically synonyms. And you're going to think about words that are often confused or misused. And I'll give you some examples of those as well. So where do you get the vocabulary? First thing you're going to do, you're just going to brainstorm them. You're going to take a pen, paper, or computer, whatever you like to use, and just think about the words that you can think of about this particular topic. And just write down all the words that come into your brain. That's what brainstorming is, right? Now, once you've thought of as many as you can, start thinking about this topic in your own language. And collect all these words, translate them into English, and add them to your list. When you've done all your thinking, you can't think of any more words, now you have to get into the actual search for these words. You have to go looking for them and spend some time and energy looking for these words. And you're going to conduct an online search. Now, you're going to use a variety of search topics and go to Google or whatever search engine you like. I personally prefer Google, but use any search engine that works for you. And think of as many key terms as you can come up with and plug them into your search engine. So for example, if you're creating an idea bank for education vocabulary, education ESL, words about education, and so on. And here are a few to get you started. Now, where the boring part comes in is that you're going to actually have to go through all the different websites that come up and see what words they offer you. Some of them will offer you like 10 words. Some will give you 20. Some will give you 50. You have to go through all the lists, all the words that you don't already have in your list, add them to your list. And the more websites you get through, the more rare will be the new word findings. Because you'll go to the next website and they'll have most of the same words the last website had. But there'll be one or two new ones, take them. Next website, one or two new ones, take them, and so on and so forth. Now, there is an advantage to this because in the process of doing this, you will find a lot of new and useful websites that will help you study English. So basically you're killing two birds with one stone here. You're building your idea bank and you're finding new resources to help you study English, okay? So that's the next step. Now, if you've done all this, you've done the brainstorming, you've done the online search, and you think you're done, one more step I want you to take. Take some of the words that you think are important, or the ones that you think might be used often, and look them up in a thesaurus. A thesaurus is like a dictionary, except it doesn't give you definitions, it gives you synonyms. Start collecting more words from these synonyms. Now, if you don't have a thesaurus, go to merriam-webster.com or dictionary.com. These are two online dictionaries and thesaurus with thesaurus applications that you can use. Get more words, more words, more words. Build up as many as you possibly can. Now, I have done an example for you. Okay, I've created an idea bank for the topic about housing. Now, of course, you're thinking housing, that's not a very common topic. No, it's not a very common topic, but it may be something you will be asked about. It has happened before, so you have to be ready for anything. I have also created idea banks for the more common topics, but this one I've created especially for this little course, so I'll tell you more about that after. So in my search for words about housing, I've found over 400 keywords. Now, keep in mind, a lot of you are thinking housing like house, apartment, renter, tenant, landlord. There's a lot more to housing than that. Where do you live? Do you live in an urban area? Do you live in suburban area, in the rural, in the countryside? Do you live with family? Do you live alone? Do you buy a house? Do you rent a house? A lot to think of when it comes to housing. So now that you have all these words, you're going to have to put all these words into as similar headings as you possibly can. You don't want to have a huge list of 400 words and try to remember a list of random words. By putting them into groups, they're much easier to remember and to relate to other words, right? And that's why we're doing it. So here are some examples of headings that I've come up with. For example, economics of housing. So there are a lot of words that deal with, the money issues that come with housing. Mortgage, interest rate, security deposit, all the things that have to do with the money of having a house or an apartment or renting or buying, etc. Accommodations, different ways to talk about accommodations, dwellings, residence, etc. Types of homes, structure, function, describing a house, describing your house, describing a building, location, address. And also you have here compounds. Compounds are taking the word home or house or whatever comes up and putting them in combinations with other words. Homemade, homework, etc. Make sure you have a list of these. But if you can't think of too many headings, that's okay, do the best you can, but make sure that at least you have these headings. People, verbs, and collocations. These are going to be used in every essay you're going to write. When it comes to people, you're thinking about, again, tenant, landlord, superintendent, lender at the bank, all kinds of different people involved when it comes to housing. Verbs. Every sentence you write in the essay is going to have a verb in it. Try to have as much variety and as much precision as you can with your language, and that's especially important with verbs. And collocations. Collocations are words that work together to have a specific usage or a specific meaning. This includes phrasal verbs, idioms, etc., and the compounds I just showed you before. So make sure you have at least these headings and as many other ones as you possibly can. Now, before you move on to the next part, you're going to have to think about words that are going to come up often. So again, let's talk about education as an example. The word student is almost impossible not to use when you're writing about education. But you don't want your essay to use the word student 5, 8, 10 times. You want to have a little bit of variety in your language. If you're using the same word too many times, the examiners think you just don't have enough vocabulary to use other words, and your score is going down. So you have pupil, undergraduate, high schooler. And what you notice here is that your precision is getting better because you have very specific words for specific contexts. So for example, a student could be in kindergarten, in high school, in college, in community college, at a training seminar, etc. An undergraduate is only in university studying for a bachelor's degree. So if that's the person you're talking about, use that word rather than student to add precision to your writing. And I also mentioned often confused words. So think about business, economics versus finances. People often mix these two words up. Economics is more about the theory, the bigger picture. So if I want to start a business, I think I have to think about the economics of doing so. I have to think about the political climate. I have to think about if there's a recession going on. I have to think about the labor market. I have to think about all these big things that have to do with the economics of running a business. Finances is basically the money. Am I going to make enough revenue to cover my costs? Can I pay the rent? Can I pay my staff? All of the money issues are finances. So again, two very different words. Economical and economic. People mix these up all the time. These are not the same thing. Make sure you know the difference between these words. Okay? Let's look at housing again as an example. A word that's going to come up often is tenant, the person who lives in an apartment or a house and pays rent. Okay? Occupant, renter, leaseholder, all of them can be used. Inhabitant doesn't necessarily mean paying rent, but it could be a person paying rent as well. An apartment could be a flat, a condominium, a unit, etc. Make sure you know the difference between house and home. A house can be a home, but it doesn't have to be. Other places, other structures can also be a home. And home can sometimes mean house, but it doesn't have to mean house. It could mean apartment as well. It could mean tent as well if you're living in a tent. Make sure you know the difference between homemade and homegrown. These are two different words. But the most important aspect of finding all these alternatives, finding all these synonyms, is to make sure that you actually use them in sentences. Only having lists doesn't help you because some words cannot be switched for other words in certain contexts. So you have to make sure that the word works. And sometimes you have to make adjustments in terms of grammar to the sentence to make that new word fit in. So make sure that you're actually practicing using these words. Okay? And the last step you're going to do in terms of vocabulary. How are you going to study and practice? You're going to have a whole list of words. Label them. Words that you know well, words that you know somewhat, you can guess them in context, and words that you don't know. Start studying the words number 2 that you somewhat know and move them into the number 1 category. And lastly, work on the words you don't know, get to know them, build your vocabulary. Okay? And that's it for video 1. Now, what we're going to do next, we're going to talk about subtopics, and we're going to use all these words to get ready to think about different types of ideas. Okay? I'll see you next video, and if you have any questions about this video, don't forget to ask me below in the comments section. See you soon.